Hey everyone, before we jump in, I'd like to quickly introduce myself. My name is Ashley Thompson. I'm a former Division One college soccer player from Oregon State University, where I played from 2016 to 2020. And I now work as a peer sports specialist at Onrise. So it's something I've both lived and now I help athletes navigate each day. One thing that I wish I had while I was playing was conversations like this because soccer is an incredible sport. It builds discipline, resilience, confidence, but it also comes with a level of pressure that is not always talked about. So a lot of players growing up, including myself, are told to be tough or push through it or don't show weakness, but we're rarely ever taught how to actually take care of our mental health while trying to juggle all of that. So when we talk about mental health, it's not talking about when you're struggling or being at a low point. We're really talking about how you're handling pressure and how you respond to mistakes, how you bounce back from an injury, and how all of that impacts your performance on and off the field. The reality is, your mental health directly impacts your confidence, your decision making, and how you're showing up to not only games, but training. It's impacting a lot of areas that one may not even think about. So today, just going to break it down into some parts. First, we'll talk about the unique pressure that comes with being an athlete and playing soccer specifically, and then how to recognize when your mental health is taking a hit and some practical strategies that you can actually use to benefit yourself, not only in your sport, but outside. So the goal is obviously not going to be to remove pressure. Pressure is not something, unfortunately, that can be removed. So the goal is really just to better understand pressure and find healthy ways to navigate that pressure. So moving into the first slide is talking about pressure. So being a player is something that everyone handles differently. So every player is going to experience various pressures. The first being performance pressure. So in soccer, every touch, every pass, every decision feels like it really matters. And when your performance starts to feel like it's defining who you are, mistakes can feel a lot bigger than they actually are. So personally, I remember games where I would make one mistake and it would just replay over and over in my head and it would impact the rest of the game for me. So it impacted how I showed up for teammates and how I was performing. So being able to understand, the impact of a mistake and how to navigate past that mistake is an important factor for every athlete. And then along with that comes lifestyle pressure. So between trainings, games, traveling, and everything outside of soccer as well. So whether that is school, work, life, friendships, relationships, an athlete can feel like there's really never a true break. I mean, there's always something that is putting a pressure on yourself. So it's not the game itself, it's everything that builds up around that. Um, Along with that is the identity pressure. So a lot of soccer players start from a young age. I know myself, I started around the age of 4, played through college. So really the sport became a huge part of who I was, and it does for most athletes. So when something disrupts that, like an injury or not getting playing time or just eventually stepping away from the sport, and it can feel like, who am I outside of this? And that's a whole nother thing to try to navigate, is taking yourself away from the sport and figuring out who you are outside of that. Um, Along with this would be external pressure. So this can come from coaches, teammates, parents, social media, just constantly feeling like you have to prove yourself and earn your spot and meet those expectations can be a lot to handle. I know for me personally, my dad was probably my biggest external pressure, stressing about getting in the car after each game, trying to replay it and figure out, is he going to make a comment about this shot? Is he going to make a comment about this pass? And putting that pressure on myself from a young age. So that was something that took a long time to figure out. And I think having conversations about it would have helped me in general and it would have helped my performance overall. Along with this is injury and setback pressure. So being sidelined is tough. I mean, everyone wants playing time. So losing that is difficult, not only physically if you're injured, but also mentally. It comes with frustration, feeling disconnected from the team, or worrying about where you stand when you come back and having to worry, are you going to get your starting spot back? Are you going to get the minutes that you want? So that's another one that is often a problem with a lot of the athletes we work with is, when you're injured, trying to maintain yourself as a teammate and trying to maintain that identity that you hold. And then lastly would be internal pressure, which is, I would argue, the biggest one, the most constant. So this is the pressure that an athlete is putting on themselves. So wanting to be perfect and overthinking plays, being hard on yourself after mistakes. And for a lot of players, it's constant. Everyone experiences all of these pressures differently, and understanding your own pressure is the first step to being able to manage it. So a lot of the athletes we work with, we identify the different pressures that are in place for them and how can we manage these pressures. And then from there, the next steps become recognizing when that pressure is impacting your mental health and how can we manage that.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Tillman, and I am the owner and mental health therapist with Inspire Hope Collective, and I'm a proud member of the Onrise Network. And we're going to continue our training for today. As we have had some time to talk about the unique pressures that you face as an athlete, we know that there are travel schedules, high expectations, long times that you are commuting when you're balancing your sport with your personal life, and you may and or have a second job. There are so many different aspects in your life that you're trying to manage the tension of, and there's lots of complexity because it's constantly shifting and changing. So it's very important to have a balance so that you can be both excellent on the field and within your mental health. And that's what we're talking about today, being able to manage the tension of the psychological pressures that come along as you compete. Now, as you think about this aspect, what are some things that you can do to help? And coaches, staff, there are things that you can do to be able to assist your athletes as well too, but what are the things specifically that can help? One of the first things that we look at is intervention, not just responding in a way where something is already happening, where we're reacting, but actually intervening and intervening early. And some of the early signs that we see are sometimes withdrawal. You might see an early sign where you notice changes and you're starting the conversation and just being able to talk about what you may have seen that has shifted within yourself. If things start to worsen, this could show like symptoms increasing. Support is needed to be able to recognize when things are changing. So, if you're starting to see early signs and you start to get to a place where you see areas that are not getting better, symptoms are increasing, support is needed. And then, as you think about these aspects of early intervention, it can sometimes get to a place of crisis where immediacy is needed, urgency is needed, and it's not a wait till we have a better moment. It's you need help now. So some of those signs you might notice is, like I mentioned, withdrawal. You might be feeling overwhelmed or anxious more than what you typically are, and or your thoughts might feel like they're racing. Your heartbeat might increase. There might just be a number of things that are happening that you start to realize that you are not feeling in your normal functionality. And beyond that, we think about the aspect of diagnoses that some may have, and or the aspect that exists of when you start to be able to see some of these early signs and things that are worsening, we start to be able to understand how this can be a mental illness or underlying disorder that we may not know about as you're navigating. So it's incredibly important to be able to get assistance, get intervention that's early, and get help that's early as you move forward. Some of the other aspects that I think about from intervention are the 5 A's. And I went through just a little bit of areas of things that you might see as you're seeking help. But the 5 A's are acute awareness, action, approach, ask, active listening, acknowledgement, and application and assistance. And these can all assist within intervention. These are specific skills that can be developed as we are considering intervention. So, athletes, intervention for yourself, having each of these aspects, and coaches and staff, intervention as you are watching, as you're keeping an eye out for one another to be able to understand where you might be in terms of your mental health or what you might be experiencing. Now, as we think about those 5 A's, we look at the first, which is acute awareness. What's changing around you? Pay attention to those areas. Maybe your appearance, your hygiene has shifted, and your overall look, your demeanor is different than what it typically is. Or your actions may have shifted, your behavior. We talked about withdrawal earlier, or your routine changes, something shifts in time, or you're not showing up to a specific practice and or a specific area that you typically would. Maybe your eating has shifted and you are not feeling as hungry, or your appetite is different. Your thoughts, are you having a lot of negative self-talk? Are there maladaptive or adverse thoughts that are constantly taking over your thought processes, and or something that you're ruminating on for a longer time, which can impede your concentration? How are you feeling? Noticing what you're feeling. What is your mood? Can you name that actual feeling? Are you irritable? Are you sad? Are you frustrated? Are you feeling anxious, overwhelmed? Are you feeling depressed or low? Being able to name those specific symptoms help with this first A of acute awareness. And one of the things that you have to pay attention to is the frequency, the impact, duration, and intensity. These will all help you know what's happening. And as you look at each of these, you want to make sure that you keep an eye on how often it's happening, or the severity of what's happening and what you're experiencing. So, as you think about acute awareness, the next one is act, approach, and ask. Start with an I statement. I noticed that. Being able to name what you're actually seeing. I noticed that I was feeling a bit sad because I was unable to eat in my typical way that I would, or I was unable to attend so and so forth, and I was feeling a bit low afterward. I'm concerned about how I've been feeling lately. Name why it matters. I'm concerned about my anger. You can actually be able to name that feeling, but start with the I statement to say that it's yours, to actually understand what's happening inside of you. Or an invitation, being able to open the door to say, can we talk about what I've been experiencing? Can we talk about so and so forth? The most important part, and I emphasize this with my clients and those I work with on a constant basis, is that it's not necessarily about fixing it in that moment, but taking the time to feel, giving yourself space to feel and not fix what you are actually feeling in that moment. Just opening the door for a conversation. The next A is actively listen. This is about the person who is talking to you, not yourself. So if someone comes to open up about what they're feeling, the most incredible and important part is to be able to be curious, but to also be able to have compassion for what they're experiencing. You're a guest. So if someone opens the door for you, think of yourself as a guest in their space, and how you might treat their home, how you might be attentive to what they are saying and actually what they're feeling, to center their experience and not yours. There's a saying that I always hear, and it says, the world has everything to do with you and nothing to do with you. And being able to understand when someone opens up their world to you, you are significant in the sense of being able to actively listen where they're coming from, and being able to also understand and take time to be curious around what they might be feeling. So you're listening to understand. You're not just trying to respond or have the right answer, but you're trying to take the journey with them and have a moment to allow them to be present with themselves, but also you being present with them. And then lastly, acknowledgement, expressing empathy. I like to say that empathy is the ability to hold someone's emotion without taking responsibility for it. So being able to hold the emotion of what someone's sharing, thanking them for sharing with gratitude and respect, and then naming what they might be experiencing to be present with them. That must be really difficult. That must be really hard, what you're experiencing. That sounds incredibly frustrating that you're going through that right now. being able to help them name what they're feeling, or normalizing it. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay that things are not okay. It's okay that you are experiencing this for the first time. Being able to help them name and normalize that experience. So, as you think about your teammates, as you think about coaches that you work with, and coaches, even as you're working with your athletes, being able to think about one another in an empathetic way to say, am I noticing what they're experiencing? And am I helping them to be able to be present with themselves so that they can process? Validating, normalizing, being able to say, yes, that feeling that you feel is valid, but also helping them to understand the present to be able to say, what is it that I'm feeling now? And what is actually real that I understand about my life right now? So, validation is incredibly important in this process as we're thinking about acknowledgement.
Hey, my name is Jordan Sanders. I am a licensed clinical social worker and certified personal trainer. I'm also the founder of Full Intentions and a proud member of the Onrise network. So let's talk about what it actually looks like to recognize when an athlete's struggling and what you can actually do about it. Application and assistance. Once you've listened and acknowledged what someone's going through, the next step is actually helping them figure out what they need. And that starts with two simple things. Number one, offering your support, and number two, pointing them towards the resources. I'm here for you sounds small, but it's actually huge. It tells someone that they're not alone in what they're going through. After that, I want you to ask, what would actually help you right now? Not just what you think they need. And if what they do need is beyond what you can provide, that's okay. That's what resources are for. Normalize reaching out and let athletes know it's not a weakness. It's just good maintenance. You don't need a diagnosis to know that something's off. Sometimes you just feel it. Maybe they're not playing the way they usually do. Maybe they've gone quiet. Maybe they look exhausted in a way that has nothing to do with a training load. And as clinicians, we talk a lot about the whole person. And this is where that starts. Three things to watch for are number one, changes in performance. Two, withdrawal from the people or activities they normally love. And visible stress showing up in sleep, mood, or behavior. You don't need all three. One shift is enough to check in. Culture gets built way before anything goes wrong. The way you talk about mental health in the locker room, on the sideline, in the group chat, that's what tells someone whether it's safe to come to you or not. So it's important to normalize it. Make it boring, make it just part of, taking care of yourself. And when someone does open up, remember that it's not your job to fix it. We always say you're not the therapist, you're the teammate. So make sure you listen, stay present, and keep that door open. A healthy environment is built on purpose. It doesn't just happen. That means being intentional about who's in an athlete's corner. People who actually care about them as a human being and not just as a player. And it means having real conversations before things get hard. Who do you call after a tough loss? Where do you go? What do you need to feel good? These aren't really heavy questions. They're just game planning. You prep for everything else, so make sure that you prep for this too. Resources only work if people actually use them. So let's put them on the table. There are counseling services and sports psychologists. Onrise is one that specifically works in this space with athletes. There are stress management tools like mindfulness and breath work that have been adapted for athletic context, not the sit still and, focus kind. It's the kind that actually makes sense for high performers. And there's education because sometimes just like understanding what's happening in your body and your brain is the thing that changes everything. None of this is a last resort. It's maintenance. So key takeaways. Here's what I want you to take away with you. Mental health is not separate from physical health. It's part of the whole system. You wouldn't tell an athlete to walk off a torn ACL. So don't expect people to push through mental health struggles either. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to show up, ask the questions, and stay in it. And if you're ever on the fence about whether to bring something up, you should bring it up. Open conversations save lives. That's not a tagline, That's real.